In this recording, I'm just going to do a simple introduction to strings. So if you recall from a previous conversation, there are several functions that you can use, such as defined, and they're all built in as long as you're using the include string. So there's find, there's getLine, ignore, insert, the length, replace, and substring. So what we're going to do is just do some of the simple ones right now. So we're going to declare a string, and we'll do three things. We'll do first name, last name, and full name. And I'm going to show you how you can create different ways to make the full name. So obviously the first thing we need to do is enter your last name or enter your first name. And we'll just do a simple CN. And we'll do the issue what CN has. So let's go enter your first name, and we'll do CN first name. Then enter your last name. And then we'll do CN last name. And then we're going to do C out. Let's just do it this way. First name.
Professor, question.
Go ahead.
On the string there, so I take a no-camel type is needed, right?
Say that one more time.
What is it, camel type?
Well, if in first name, that's one of the ones where technically first name could be like this if it's all one thing. If you were going to make it two names, you could do that. But I just think this is one of the ones that it just flows nicer because it really first name and last name and full name can be construed as one thing. But, you know, if you would rather do camel, camel case on the first name on your programs, that's fine in there.
Okay.
So now we have this over here. So we're going to do first name, last name, and here. So let's go and run it. And we're going to do it twice. One, we're going to do it nice, and the second one, we're going to do it slightly different. That's assuming it ever. So I'm going to do. So that looks good. All right, so that's fine. But suppose I'm one of those ones that has multiple first name or multiple last name. So let's go and let's just say that I just found out that I'm Hispanic and that my last name was not Foster, it was Del Rio. So I have to go, what is my first name? And then I'm going to do Del Rio. And notice that it chopped off the Rio. So now let's switch this around and let's do the last name first. So now we're going to do Del Rio and then Richard. And you'll see the issues with CN. So I'm going to do Del Rio. And it never asked me for my first name. So the question is, why did it? And it's the way CN works. Cn works strictly on, it's got a string. As soon as it gets a non-string like a space or the enter key, then it ends it. So as soon as you hit the space, you're done. See, if I would have done Cn first name, and I could do that all on the same line. And that's one of the reasons why I tell you don't do that stuff, because the Cn causes all kinds of issues. So to prevent that problem, we use getLine. But I want to do some of the issues or some of the things that we want to do right over here. So let's do the same thing. And this time we're going to choose cout. There are. Now notice we have first name. So we're going to do first name. And I'm going to hit a dot. And once you hit a dot, these are all the things that you can do. So we want to know the length of it. Now, one thing you have to remember, it's a length is a function, so you need to put in the parentheses. Or the, yeah, those are parentheses. And there are in So let's see what happens now. So we're doing Foster and Richard. And there are 7 in Richard. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we know the length, how to get the length. If I wanted to replace the R, there is actually a replace function. So we could actually say I didn't type in my first name in here. I could actually replace that, but I don't want to get into that right now because what we were doing the upper. So let's go back and do the upper in here, and we're not going to use, I'm not going to type in upper. So if I have, so let's see, we have last name, so let's do it for last name. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose last name. Now, this is a little bit different. Remember, a string is nothing more than an array of characters. So what we can do here is I want to access the very first letter, which would be in 0. And then I would just choose to upper. And then in parentheses, last name of 0. And if I did it right, it's going to print out everything the way I want to do it. So let's actually move this here. And see what happens. Oops. Okay, so why did that not? So let me just retype it since it obviously disappeared. Now I'm doing something different. This time I'm doing a plus. And let's see what happens.
Are you looking for the other cout because it's on line 21?
Oh, you're right. It is there. Well, that's okay, because that way we can do it before. I see what happens. C in first name. I see why I didn't see it. You are my resident finder. Awesome. So we're in here. First name in here. So basically, this takes the replace of these less than signs. But it only works on strings. So if you have an integer in there, you're going to get an error. So let's see what happens here. So here we're going to see out the first name, last name. Then we're going to convert the last name. Then we're going to print it out again. And we don't really care about this. So let's go and run it and see what happens. Okay, so obviously we have some cosmetic issues. So we're going to put in there are, let's see out, last name. And it will not work with end out, that I'm aware of. So now basically we should do the same thing with first name. Let's run this again. And so you can see that worked. Now let's do full name. So full name. We're going to do first name, and we'll just add all these together. And we'll put out C out full name. And we'll probably have a cosmetic issue, so let's add an end L. And run it again, see what happens. Alright, so you can see that first name, then first name with the capitals, and then we physically created a new thing. So that's the string. We did the string length in there. So now we can do the same thing with a get line. And let's look at some of the other things. So replace func string in here. So let's do, instead of the to upper in here, we're going to do a replace. But I want to put the video on hold right now to give you some opportunity to ask questions. So what we want to do now is we want to use a function called find to find out exactly where the space is right over here. So let's create an integer, and we'll just call it space. Or to make Mylene happy, we'll do camel case.
Thank you.
Hey, gotta take care of you. So let's go in here and see what happens. So we're going to do location equals. Now what's our string? You always do the string first, so which is full name. Click on find. Now here's what it, when you go in there, sometimes they give you a thing in here. So we're going to find the character, and we don't really care how many we're going to go. So let's just type in find, and we want the space. And let's see what happens. So we have obviously a wrong name here. Location.
Do we need to?
You need to, I need to how to learn how to spell. So let's see what happens now. We'll do C out. The space is at location and location. Now, if I were to try to put in a plus sign, I did it again. If I were to try to put in a plus sign there, it's going to give me an error. That only works. That's a concatenation, however you pronounce it. So let's run this and see what happens. All right, so it's at location 7. So let's see how that actually works. So we have Richard. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So remember, you always have to count the leading 0 in there, or remember that the first location is 0. So now that we know that it's at 7, we can now print out the first 7 characters in there. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a second first name so we can just store it instead of printing it out. And we just call it new first name. So what we're going to do here is new first name equals. Now what we want is we want a substring. So what we need to do obviously is full name dot, and we want to go to substring. And what we're going to do here is we're going to print out location size. Remember that it will work because we are actually knowing that it starts at 0. So let's now see out and see what happens. See if we brought C++ to its knees. And we'll put in a end out here. And let's see what happens now. Okay, so location 7, so it's print. Oh, let's see. Why did we full name? So obviously I made a mistake somewhere because it's printing the last in here. So this is where you have to start getting and playing with the full name in here. So new first name is full name substring space location. What that means is starting at 7. So let's put in a 0 here and see if that fixes our problem. And there you go. So that's the whole issue, is you want to look and see how the substring works. So let me explain it to you. The first here is, where do you want to start and how many characters do you want to go? If you don't put anything here, what's going to wind up happening is it's going to start at 7. That's why you saw the space, and then it's just going to print out the rest in there. So that's how we use it to get extracting. So then if we wanted to do the last name, we're going to do basically the same thing. We know what the length is. Did we do the length? Let's create an integer, and we'll call it length. So we knew first name, space location, full name. All right. So let's put a length equals full name dot length. So now what we're going to do, oh, sorry, bad man. Always have to put that there. So now we already know where the space is. The space is number 7. But the last name doesn't begin to 8. So let's go in there, and do a, let's see, let's do a new last name. So we're going to do basically the same thing. We're going to do new last name equals full name dot substring. But this time we want to start at the location plus 1. Remember, the location is a space. So we need to start at location is a space location plus 1. And I know you're waiting for me not to do this, so I'm doing it. I know how you guys work. So we're going to start at space location plus 1. And let's see what happens now. Let's see if we actually get the rest of it without putting anything else in. And let's do C out. New last name. All right, let's see what happens. And there we go. So let's go and look at what we did. We just, at this point in time, we entered last name, first name, and we converted it to uppercase. We added the name together. This is called concatenation. No, I'm not spelling it properly. You can use it to actually combine strings together. In this particular case, you're actually combining it and then you're printing it. So it works out either way. With the C out, you can use the plus sign or you can use these. You can use the plus as long as you don't include an integer. So if this was an integer here, you'd get a nasty message. So now we found here's the length of it in here. We wanted to find, this is the full location of the space in here. We found the space, which is number 7, starting with 0. Tells you where it's located. We combined the first whatever characters starting at 0, and we went for 7 characters, which would make sense because there's 7 characters in the first name. Then we just printed that. Then we did a new last name by starting with where the space is located plus 1 character in here. And then we would do to print out the last name. So that is a few of the functions there. We could also have used the replace function for the to upper in here. But we're going to... Did that get you excited?
Yeah. I just realized, was this supposed to be recorded or no?
It is recorded. We're recording.
Oh, we're recording. I don't see it. I'm sorry.
Down here it's there, honest. So
My lead is slacking. I see the pause on.
So okay, so
Sorry about that.
all right, so let me pause the video